Okie dokie. Welcome back. We're now for episode 2 of Inside the Oval. With me, as always, Jeremy Taiwo.
What's up?
So we're now doing our post-World Championship kind of episodes. We're going to split this into 2 episodes because there's just too much stuff that has gone down to even contemplate only doing 1 episode. So yeah. Okay. Yeah, so it'll be 2 episodes that we're going to be doing, kind of just morphing all together. The second, part 2, is going to be more performance-based.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of amazing performances that we have to cover across the entire oval and in the great filling of a cinnamon roll. Some stuff record-setting, some stuff that's never been done in championships. It's just going to be full of a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. So just to start it off, in case any of you guys were wondering what happened to me for performing at the World Championships, during the warm-ups of the first day, I strained my hip flexor, so I wasn't able to kind of give the best that I could towards the 10 events. So we pulled out because we could have actually done something really bad to the hip flexor, and then I wouldn't have been able to compete for next year, where the ultimate goal is the Olympics.
The Olympics, baby. Come on now. And
it's the show of the show.
You know, as crappy as it is to get to a meet where you put in so much work behind the scenes when people have no idea what you're doing, I got to see Tim work hard, and it just sucks because the timing's just like, what is this timing? You get to the meet where it matters and stuff happens, and I told him I'm 1 for 3 for big international meets, and luckily I was able to finish the Olympics. I had 2 terrible adductor things going on during that whole thing, but yeah, I mean, I had to drop out of Moscow from tearing my meniscus in the high jump, 4th event, and then I made a little further the next time in Beijing, but I had a huge hamstring injury that we see actually took place for the world leader going into this decathlon. But it's one of those things, the multi beats you up, and it's preparation, but a lot of it is timing.
Yeah, and luckily we were at a place that has just some phenomenal facilities. So we went to the Aspatire area, talked with a leading groin expert. So I was able to get points there to bring back to Jeremy and stuff like that. So if you're going to get hurt somewhere, there was a pretty good place to get hurt.
Yeah. And, you know, for all the people who are young and trying to get into the groove of understanding what kind of effort you need to put into, you know, the off season to result in good performances later in the year, this is the time right now. This is the time that Tim and I are going to be buckling down and really making sure we're on top of every kind of pre-exercise warm-up routine and strengthening routine, and also post, and just being super diligent about that now is going to speak to what you're going to be able to do accomplishment-wise later.
Yeah, and the cool down is a main part, because what most people don't understand is, especially when you get to the level we're at, you're pushing the boundaries to where you can possibly go. Things can just go like an instant, like it did to me, where we weren't expecting it and it just happened. So you kind of have to deal with it. But that's kind of the level that we have to go at. And it's a level that you have to work into. It's not something that if you're just beginning, you can instantly go and try to compete at your max 100%. It's not something we try to do. We don't compete at our max every single time. We pick and choose which ones we really have to go for.
Yeah.
So it's just stuff like that as you're coming up through youths, high schools, into college and stuff like that. It's realizing what your body can take and listening to your body most of all. It's sometimes not a fun conversation to have with your coach at that point, but you really do have to pay attention and speak out if there's something that's feeling really weird with your body.
I don't want to call it a gray area, but it is an area that you're going to learn to navigate. And really the only true person that will navigate how you're feeling, how your body is yourself. And this journey that we have, that's life, the real goal is mastery of self. And with that, you have to understand self. So really check in with yourself before you warm up, before and after you compete. That's the biggest time, and you need to have those really good conversations with yourself of what you're able to endure and what you need to hold back from. That's honestly sometimes what separates the silver and gold medalists in this sport.
Yeah, it's crazy. Now, let's talk about the championships. We'll talk about the feel of the championships, especially from my perspective inside the stadium, since I was crippled and on the sideline.
It can't have been all that bad. You were like, well, yeah. What was it like? What's the Middle East like, man?
It's an odd place. It is. It's an odd place because there's a lot of people there, but there's nobody outside. Nobody wants to go outside because you walk outside and your hands are instantly sweating. and you wouldn't normally walk outside somewhere and be like, man, my hands are sweaty.
Yeah.
No. You don't think about that, but like when you walk to a track meet, you're like, okay, my hands are sweaty.
Yeah.
You're thinking about pole vault, you're thinking about discus, you're thinking about stuff like that. So this is actually a funny one. So I did a pole vault session. Of course, the day I do that pole vault session, everyone and their dog wants to be out there. So everybody in the name of pole vault was out there. You had Kendricks, you had Renaud, you had Stefanini, you had Morris, just anybody you could think of.
Yeah.
They were out there watching.
Yeah.
And at this point, pole vault wasn't my favorite thing. It wasn't going great.
Oh man, here we go.
Great practice.
Oh yeah.
Terrific practice. Even into a headwind, it was boom, boom, boom. But the chalk was gunking to my hands.
Wow.
And it takes a lot to gunk it to your hands.
Yeah. Wow.
And luckily, like the British athletics coach, he had a towel, so I was able to wipe it down and stuff like that. But that's like the level of sweat. You walk out and your shirt was it was like you jumped in a pool. You were watching people running, and you didn't see them pour water over them, but it looked like they jumped in a pool.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
So was that? I mean, from that perspective, and like talking about temperature on the track, like. Was that? I mean, it's cool that we have the representation to put it somewhere where it hasn't been before. But like, is that safe for the athletes?
It was cold in the stadium.
It was cold.
We'll go into that when we talk about the actual stadium wise. But it was cold in the stadium.
It was cold in the stadium.
Yeah, but it was like outside to inside. It was so like everywhere you walked, you would get blasted. So like me and Toby were joking that you'd get tired of being cold.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you'd walk outside, you'd get hot, and then like you just get blasted by AC, and it's always really low. So
wasn't this like your life though in Arizona? Isn't that how you're supposed to live? Just run outside real quick, get to the car, get back in, get to the AC.
Well, yeah, but still, that's besides the point. But yeah, no. So like the first couple of days, that place did not feel like a championship. I don't know what it looked like on TV. Mm-hmm. I've heard there was a lot of like outrage that there was nobody during the 100 to me. I wasn't at that point. I was still like in I'm competing.
Yeah.
Because it was before my event, but like watching it on the internet, there was nobody there, and that was another thing is you could not watch the championship in Doha. Mm-hmm. You had to get a VPN.
Yeah. You
physically couldn't.
That's crazy.
And it's like we are at the place of the World Championship. Why can I not see this?
Why would a country invest so many millions of dollars and not have that be the priority of seeing what's going on there?
It's me.
That's amazing. I mean, wow.
Yeah. And that's like you had like a satellite TV, which you're not going to have in a hotel.
Right.
So everybody's scrambling around trying to find VPNs, find ones that work.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know what it looked like state-wise or what like the announcers were saying on TV.
Yeah, I mean, we were watching on the Gold Channel. I mean, that was our number one access for it. And, with that, I feel like the coverage is getting a little bit better. With that, they always show, the popular sports and cut out a lot of other stuff.
Liv was saying that they had a fault-only feed and stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's nice.
So that's cool. Yeah, no, they're stepping up their game because they understand the interests are specific for a lot of track and field people. Some people just want to watch the jumps. Some people just want to watch the throws.
Yeah, because when the 10K is going on, I want to watch some pole vault.
Yeah.
I like the first mile of the 10K where it sets up. Then not a huge amount happens in the middle. Yeah. They're just all keeping position, and then the last mile.
Yeah.
Also pretty interesting because that's where a lot of stuff.
Absolutely, I love watching the last 2,000 meters of that race, but. The middle part, there's a lot of people who want to watch that whole middle part. I think they're lying to themselves.
I was in the Uganda crowd at that point. Like when the Uganda guy won that 10K, me and my roommate were in the Uganda crowd.
That's what's up. That's awesome. It must have been wild.
there was a whole like when the guy won, there was just water everywhere. Like people were throwing water bottles up and everything. They were going crazy. They knew how to have fun for 27 minutes.
I believe it. And honestly, I'm wondering, with the performances we saw, was that a distinct advantage, that flip-flop between the extreme heat and cold for some countries?
Yeah, you'd feel like it had to play into the African countries' hands. Mm-hmm. It had to, because they're used to that.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah.
I mean, considering they did extremely well, and they always do extremely well. Yeah. But it looked like they did even better in the mid-distance races, because it was like, agreed, there's a difference between Europeans and worlds, especially as you saw with the Ingebrigtsen systems. Yes. There's a huge difference between what they did last year at Europeans to this year. Absolutely. Like they tried as hard as they could for the young one, but the heat got to him. You could physically see that the heat got him. He dropped like a rock and just like skidded across the ground. So.
Yeah, man, the heat is no joke. I mean, I honestly, personally, from what I've seen and what I've experienced, it brings some really awesome stuff to the short sprints and for the jumps. And then even up into for the 15 for some people. But once you get into that 15 for other countries that are more on the bigger, higher latitudes, lower latitudes, it's a fight. Yeah. And you can even see with the marathon, it's like, if you're not built in that, you're done. Yeah.
Half of them are gone.
And we're talking about they're running this in the dead of night, and it's still scorching.
I don't think it was so much of the heat, because it was hot, but it wasn't ridiculous. It may have been at like 90 degrees at night. High 80s, mid 90s, I think. It didn't get into the hundreds until like 8 a.m.
Okay, well...
But it was the humidity. It was the humidity that got it, because there was so much humidity. It said it was only like 40 or 50%, but I was talking with someone there, and we swear they have to be doing it on a different scale.
Can you translate these degrees for centigrade for some of these people?
To centigrade, man.
Here to the north and the rest of the world?
I think it would maybe have gone up to like, let's say, I think the hottest it was getting up to was like 40 or something degrees Celsius. So I think when they were running the marathon, I think it may have been around 30.
I want to say probably 35. It probably seems a little hotter.
So it was, let's say it was 90 degrees when they ran it. So yeah, about 32 degrees Celsius when they were running it, but the humidity was crazy. It was huge. So I was hurdling one day at like 7 o'clock at night. The temperature was fine, but it was like you were running in rain, because when you were going over the hurdle, your sweat was coming up and back into your eyes from your shirt. Like your shirt was just drenched. It was stuck to you. So I think that was what like a lot of the brutal conditions were.
That's fascinating.
Humidity, yeah.
I'm not a meteorologist of any sort, but I just figured it'd be very dry heat. Given it's there, but it's like it's not. And do you think
it's really heavy heat?
Really heavy heat. And do you think that the AC or the attempts to cool it off also added that extra moisture to the environment?
Maybe. Again, I didn't go down into the stadium. I went down into the stadium once, but like to tell you like how wet the heat was so they would keep the discs, shots, javelins on the practice track in AC, and then they would bring them out for our practice time. And when they came out, they were wet.
Oh man!
they were wet. You were trying to throw like just this wet discus, or you chalk it up. It was crazy, like just how heavy that heat was.
So not only do we have the environment, the battle of the elements, we also have the battle of the protests. This meet.
Yeah, protests were definitely a big part of this one.
Fairness. I should say the battle of integrity and fairness. In a sport that has everyone competing at a fair level, we have fairness. Fairness needs to be going in here.
Definitely in the same levels. I got in a huge debate about this with...
we did.
With not with you, but with one of the... with an 800 runner that was on the GB team. This is where my American side came out. I was not backing down from this. there was no way I was backing down from this, where I can be kind of an ass about stuff like this. But the 100 hurdles was a ridiculous one. So Grant won that thing. He was hands down. Yeah. Over the first hurdle, he had that thing won.
I think it was in the bag.
He had it won.
Which is something to say in a hurdle race. Because a lot can happen in a hurdle race, much like a decathlon, right?
And what can happen in this race? That's what happened. But I mean, there's times where the only person I think that could have taken down Grant would have been D-Rob. But things happened. He got DQ'd in the first round. Exactly, which, to be honest, I think was he probably should have been DQ'd because he was in, like, his trail leg was in somebody's lane. So the only one that probably could have taken him down was D-Rob. But yeah, there was the guy that he hit the hurdle with was so far behind that it really didn't make a difference. And at the end of the day, it impacted D-Rob more than it impacted the guy behind him.
For sure.
Because there was no way that guy was going to come in the top 3 or 4. But, I mean, again, rules are rules. It is what it is.
Yes. Rules are rules, it is what it is. Now, and also, let's be clear here. Raise your hand if you've ever been hit by someone else or hit someone else in a hurdle race. That's the nature of the hurdles, okay? If people are running over these obstacles as fast as they can, and they're all pretty much within half a centimeter of each other, there's going to be a little bit of contact, right?
So this is what happened. So they were away. Omar McLeod was chasing Grant like a madman, as you would, because he's going for gold.
Oh, for sure.
Screw second or third.
Yeah.
He wants the win.
Oh, yeah.
He's chasing him down as fast as he can. Gets a little unstable, hits a hurdle, and this is where it gets dicey because he hops over hurdle 9 or 10. I think he may have hopped over hurdle 9. Yeah. And then was a little bit out of control and was over the lane, over kind of into Ortega's lane a little bit, but his body was still in his lane, or like his legs were still in his lane, but his upper body was in Ortega's lane, so he had to push him a little bit off to the side over the last one. But then he stops 5 meters before the line and puts his hands out like, what are you guys going to do about this? And then comes fourth. Protests that Omar was in his lane, otherwise he would have got a medal. Gets bumped up to third or joint third. So that was ridiculous. But when you look at the replay, Omar did it in the safest way that you could possibly do it. At that speed, if you run and push over that hurdle, that's going to either mess up you and Ortega, because that hurdle can go anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
So it could have messed up a whole number of people. And at the end of the day, they DQ'd Omar. Done. That should have been the right decision. DQ Omar, be done. Because then it happens in everything. Like we were talking about it with my vaulter roommate. He was like, yeah, I break a pole. Same kind of thing. Like, that's going to suck. But I'm not going to protest that stopped me from getting a medal. It's the same thing if it happened in the 400 hurdles. If you fall and roll into somebody else's lane, you're going to get DQ'd. The other person's shit out of luck. Yeah.
The hurdles is tough. I mean, in track and field, it's a contact sport. And part of the thing is like you have to do as much as you can in fairness with what goes down. But, you know, when you kind of sign up for a race that involves potential impact with objects and other people.
Stuff out of people's control happens.
Yes, it's true. And you know, props to them. They're trying to navigate as best they can, but also like run your race as best you can. And if it's, and it's supposed to be by the rule book what it's supposed to be, then it'll figure itself out. Like just show the honest effort first,
Yeah, which I mean, when you're running at 10-1 speed over barriers, stuff's gonna happen. For sure. The hammer throw was also another. This was just. This was worse. This was worse than the hurdle one.
Well, we learned from this championship that if you place fourth, you can actually get a medal. So
I should have protested if I didn't hurt my hip flexor, I was winning. Give me a medal. I feel like I need it.
Are we transitioning into what they're doing in elementary schools nowadays where people are given medals for participating in sports now? Because are we just making super soft athletes? Like, what is going on here?
So we got a guy from Hungary threw 78-18 to get third. First off, the guy that won was his like fourth straight world championships. That's crazy. Four straight. Anyways, so the Hungary guy threw 78-18. I'm not going to attempt to say these names because I'm just going to butcher them. So, and people are going to laugh. And then the Polish guy came fourth with 77-69. Now, I read the report just so that way I could know what was happening. Poland protested that the Hungary guy touched outside of the ring, which we all know is a foul. Once you start your throw, you can't touch outside the ring, and you got to walk out the back.
Right.
So he touched outside the ring on his first throw, but it was a fair throw. I think they said it was a fair throw, blah, blah, blah. You can't really go back in too much and then protest that it's not a fair throw after the whole thing's done.
You can't do that. You can't do that in football.
Yeah.
If people know what that sport is.
Out of fairness, they gave him both bronze.
Yeah.
This is amazing. I'm just like...
I've never heard of that.
Now, this goes back to some of you young athletes who are going to be student athletes. Your athletics can only demonstrate so much of what you're doing training-wise. If you can work on your eloquent speech, your ability to argue, your ability to debate, really work the academic side, because it looks like it can get you medals if you argue appropriately.
Yeah, Jeremy, you weren't there. You should protest. If you were there, you would have won.
In a world of what ifs and could haves and should
You would have
haves.
won the 100.
That's what I see, and that's what I'm so. I mean, that example of kind of just reneging someone that already had done something that was said that was fair as the throw. It's like track is done as an individual sport, and it's one of the sports that is like the clock and the measuring tape does not lie.
No, it's pretty
you
cut and
did
dry.
what it is. If you lied, you did it taking some other kind of anabolic steroids or doing some other stuff before you even got to it. But what you did that day is what you did. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's point blank, okay?
Yeah.
People can say if you're fast or you're slow, or you actually can throw things far, or you can't, based on what you have done in the stadium.
Said, yeah.
And so the fact that this is something that has been done, I'm just like...
It was ridiculous. Like,
It gives no...
I didn't even know about this hammer until like I was arguing about the whole Ortega situation. The Ortega one now looks like it should have been given the bronze compared to this hammer throw. It's just ridiculous. But on top of that, like going into a little bit of like backing up, going into the crowd. There was nobody the first couple of days, and then they brought in basically what you would call a rent-a-crowd. They were just busing people in, and on the way to the stadium, you'd look into buses heading to the stadium, and it was just filled with the people that were in the stadium.
That's wild.
And it got to the point where I went to go watch the high jump final. It was a final I really wanted to see because Bashim was jumping, and it was going to get crazy.
It's going to get crazy.
Yeah.
You want to see that happen.
Exactly, but this is where I run into the issue. As athletes, we get specific seating in areas. Your pass gets you those seating arrangements, as it should. We're the ones that basically make this meet happen.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
we should be able to see you guys are benefiting from it almost more than we are.
Yeah, and you're supporting your teammates on the team. Like, come on, that's the point of watching your nationalism, right?
Yeah, exactly. But they overfilled it, so it got to the point where it was me, my roommate, Katerina Stefanidi, and her coach. We were trying to get into the stadium, into the seats to watch it. They were blocking us out. They said we could not go into the stadium, into the seating area, to actually watch the meet. They're like, it's full. We had an Olympic and world champion with us, and you're telling her that she can't go and watch the meet. We finally, me and my roommate were finally able to wheel our way in because I threw a fit to one of the volunteers.
Oh, yeah.
And finally he just let us through.
Yeah.
But we weren't even sitting in a seat. We were sitting basically on the stairs.
Yeah.
Just hoping that nobody's going to kick us out of that area. That's to the point that it got to, which, I mean, it's good for you guys for bringing people in to fill the stadium because they would go crazy over nothing. Warm-up throws.
Yeah. Right.
cheering.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
No matter what,
No
like
matter
people,
what,
people
yeah.
were cheering. It was literally like a soccer game or something.
Yes.
People were cheering like
Mhm.
like it was a soccer game.
Mm-hmm.
But it gets to the point where if, like, as athletes, we can't go into our designated area.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Something definitely went wrong. I mean, the flip side, like, yes, it brings popularity to the sport. Yes, it brings people who've probably never seen the sport or been fans of it before to experience it, see if they like it. And also helping athletes who do really well with crowds. Yes, that's why you do it. But on the flip side, it goes back to people not really understanding and respecting all the work, the effort, the sacrifice that goes into training for these events as athletes. And, you know, when we are competing and when we're in the interim waiting to compete, like, we do love the sport as much as, you know, the fan who doesn't do it. And so, yeah, designation should be, you know, drawn and it should be.
well, because it also goes to how late the championship was.
Yeah.
And having the championship this late, it makes it so that the kids that want to go see it, they're in school, they can't go see it.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes it so the parents and stuff of them, or just like a regular person, they can't really go watch it because they've probably taken time off in the middle of the summer to be with their family, this, that, and everything.
Exactly,
And I don't mean to say it like this, but also it's in the Middle East.
yeah.
Like it was a really cool championship. The stadium was awesome. The surrounding areas were awesome. Like the technology they were using in there was really cool. Like the light show that they had, that thing was awesome.
Yeah.
But then
It wasn't followed up with the same kind of people
ooh and
support.
ahs that you would have, like the fact that you had 200-meter finals and nobody was there.
Yeah, and no one's there. Yeah.
And then the next day like that,
Mhm.
it was filled because
Yeah.
people were complaining online that, oh, this is a disgrace.
Yeah.
And then somehow the next day the stadium was filled.
That's what we call a really
Rent a
good rent-a-crowd service, or someone who is able to fix that situation. Curious
They had
about
the money-
that.
They had the money to do that.
Yeah, they have the money to do that, right? So, and that's interesting because that was the whole argument for having the games in LA, back in LA, and then, you know, in Tokyo. Like, a lot of these countries are sparing resources and saying that they can just reconstitute different parts of what has already been built, or use existing structures. It's part of like our, you know, reduction in just making these elaborate things that become derelict after some time. You know, it's like that needs to be kind of at the forefront of people's minds when they do choose places.
Well, at least they're having the World Cup in 2 years.
Yes.
So that's going to be used, and it's the stadium for the Diamond Leagues, and it's a lot better than the stadium they were in.
Awesome.
So at least it is being reused.
Good.
So
Good.
that's the nice thing about that. But
What did you think about the lateness of this competition having an effect on the performances? Do you think it was going to be a down year? I heard a lot of people talking about that. Did you think it was going to be up in the air?
I mean, to be honest, it was going to be fine no matter what. People like making sure they're peak. You saw the times in the season weren't very great compared to what it has been because people are trying to peak so late, but trying to peak.
Talking about the women's 400 meter hurdles that was done in. Okay, no, you're talking about other events. Got it.
I'm just talking about no, but they didn't get going until the USA Champs. So basically, the time that you would be peak basically for the championship.
Yeah, for sure.
So everybody's trying to push that back as late as possible. I think the only thing that it affected were injuries.
Yeah.
Because you were trying to do stuff so late into when you're normally in off. I think as decathletes, we have the latest season.
For sure.
Because Talence is normally
September 17th, 18th.
yeah. As for like the Diamond League's like a week before that or something like that, early September. So it's like that's the latest we ever go, and then to hold that for another 2 weeks. I mean, like. Little stuff pop up that you weren't thinking about. My thing popped up without even thinking about it. Was that due to how late the championship was, or was that due to something that I did? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it just seemed like there was a lot of people that were just getting hurt
Yeah, exactly.
in the championships. It seemed like a lot of soft tissue stuff.
Yeah, a lot of soft tissue stuff. Yeah, for sure. And that goes kind of into, you know, what we talk about in terms of some of the favorites. So for our event, Kevin, and then for the women's,
Nafi.
Nafi.
And then there was there's other ones in there. There's almost ones that you can't even think about because there were so many.
Yeah. Exactly.
Bondarenko was one. He's been injured a lot this year. Seemed to get back into shape and then was gone.
And Barshim was the standout one because he had.
It helped him to have it this late because he had whole ankle reconstructive surgery.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, I think it's some huge undercover operation to push it late so that Barshim was able to perform at that time. Because can you imagine? What do you think he made winning that? What do you think he made?
Don't want to try that.
I think they probably parceled off a quarter of
The revenue.
Cutter to give to Barshim. I mean, he's probably paid in just millions of dollars.
We were joking that he got a penthouse in Torch the second he finished that was his.
No. Like, people think Usain Bolt was the most paid track athlete in track and field. Absolutely not. It is Barshim, without a doubt.
When you have a field athlete wearing a $250,000 watch,
Right.
that instantly just says it. Like, yeah, I mean, Usain Bolt and all of them could, but they're premier events. The fact you have a high jumper wearing your watch like that and he gets that much exposure, it proves that it's a worthy investment for that company. And it's crazy.
Absolutely, yeah. And with that premier event, like, you could say, hey, do you know what the 100-meter dash is? Like, oh yeah, the world's fastest human runs the 100-meter dash. You ask people what the high jump is, people are like, is that where they use the pole to jump over that thingy?
Or is that where you jump into the sand?
Yeah.
When you just like, no.
So not being able to be clear about that event goes to show how much he's really raking it.
Yeah, I mean that place went crazy when he won. and the fact is he almost bombed it.
Yeah.
He almost failed at 230, came out on his third attempt, and then just went on a rampage. First, and it was crazy because that whole stadium was going.
Oh, for sure, dude. So I mean, I had the similar situation. My first World Championships being in Moscow, Bondarenko versus Barshim, and it was insane. And it was half the stadium was cheering for Bondarenko. It was crazy, but it was like they were going back and forth. I think they both cleared 241 and we're both taking shots at 247, which is 2 centimeters above the world record. So it was the most unreal high jump competition of all time. I'm sure, in Barshim's home country, it could have been just
crazy,
wild. So cool.
Yeah, that one was crazy. But yeah, for me it was with the way they AC'd the stadium, because they AC'd it, I heard, to about 25 degrees Celsius, so a little bit below 80 degrees. So you're going from your warm-up track, which was super hot.
Yeah.
You could warm up in an indoor dome.
Okay.
Luckily they had that, otherwise you'd be screwed.
Yeah.
So then you're waiting outside, so you're going AC to warmth. And then as you're walking through, you're just getting blasted with AC when you're underneath. And then you come out and you're already blasted with AC again when you're in there. I mean, they turned off the inside loop, but the out was still going. But they could have had the championship 2 or 3 weeks earlier than they did. And I don't think it would have affected anything.
Okay.
We were talking about it would affect the stuff outside. So the race walk.
And the marathon. Wait, no, the marathon was done. Yeah.
and the marathons. Now we were talking about this. Is you just loop the marathon in with another. So you loop it in with the Berlin Marathon or something like that, to where you make the Berlin Marathon your world championship. In which case you would get every country sending people. You wouldn't get people drawing out and doing this, that, and everything. You would actually attract higher marathon people if you did that.
Yeah, but we got to talk about home field advantage. There's a reason why, people want to be playing.
Yeah, but it wouldn't matter in those couple events because Qatar had nobody in them.
True, but if you think about the outer surrounding countries, they're going to have the advantage, which goes into our 400 meters for the women. And I know this episode we're not going to be talking about too specifically a lot of things, but I just think there were huge advantages for some of these shorter distances, and we saw some of the performances of the most incredible performances World Championships have ever seen. And I think definitely the heat was a factor.
The conditions in there were perfect. There was not an ounce of wind. It was ideal temperature and a fast track.
Yeah.
So, awesome. I mean, you have all of those together. So yeah, we're going to get into the performances on the next one because we have a lot of stuff to talk about. There's like we were saying, there's just great performances, 400 hurdles, shot put, decathlon, heptathlon. You can just keep naming them. So that's why we needed to do it 2 parts for this one, because it was important for us to talk about what we did. So we're going to end this one here and then go on later. I'm currently uploading the first episode to YouTube. It's just taking forever. So you can watch this one on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes podcast. I was able to get them on all of those ones. So follow them on whichever one you want. Like it on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And we'll see you for the next episode.
Sounds good.